My name is Danielle Ruger-Mrowski. I am the Associate Director of Partnerships at Parker Dewey, and I am very excited to talk to you today about micro-internships and how they can help you get some real experience. Paid real experience at that. So as we're kicking off, we do have a poll for you. If you haven't already, we'd love for you to let us know which of those challenges resonates with you. So that way we can talk about how micro internships can help. And I see we are coming out strong with some folks already saying hello in the chat, hello, and some other folks who are already asking questions. So the first one we've got right off the bat, are these remote or in person? The majority of these are remote. So these micro internships, we're going to talk about exactly what they are, but they are project-based experiences, meaning kind of like an assignment you would get in a class. You're going to connect with the supervisor like you'd connect with an instructor. So you're building your network with a real person, but you're working on it on your own time with a deadline. So with that, going to backtrack just a little bit, continuing to keep an eye on the chat, and want to talk a little bit about some of those challenges you're seeing in the poll and some of the other students we've seen come to Parker Dewey that were facing these challenges. So as you're filling out that poll, whether you're like, I don't know what I want to do, I don't want to commit a whole summer or a whole semester when I have no idea, I don't have opportunities near me, I don't have transportation, I'm seeing opportunities, but they're unpaid, and I'm looking at my budget and my tuition and going, that's not realistic. Whatever the challenges are, if they're in this poll or you see them on the screen, or if you're perhaps facing unique challenges, chances are Parker Dewey Micro-Internships are going to be able to help. Definitely for those who are in the poll and on the screen. Just can't speak to any that y'all might put in the chat if you want to. So what exactly are these micro-internships? They are short-term professional projects that you all do on behalf of real companies. These are companies from across the United States, all the way from Fortune 500 companies to local mom and pop shops. There's a nice range. So to break that down a little bit further, when we say short-term, we mean it. All these micro internships are focused on doing something specific. So maybe a company needs someone to make an email marketing campaign. Maybe they need someone to go through data and look for insights. Maybe they need research done. Maybe they need a PowerPoint presentation designed. Those are just examples. We see projects from all different types of companies and all different types of industries. But once you, the micro intern, completes that specific project, you're done with the micro internship. And these projects typically take somewhere between 10 to 40 hours in total. So that is not per week, that is again, in total. And I see someone in the chat asking, is there a link? How do we get started? We are going to cover this, but in case you want to jump ahead, here is the link to go ahead and get started creating your account. First, we're going to cover exactly what micro internships are, but then we're going to talk about how to help you make your application stand out. So if you want to grab that link, if you don't already have an account, create one. If you have one, log into it, because we're going to give you lots of tips that you can apply live today. Next part is they are all paid, every single Parker Dewey Micro-Internship, because we know a lot of you can't afford to spend your time on something unless you're compensated for that time. And again, to be clear, these aren't simulations, these aren't hypotheticals, these are real projects. And that's why it makes sense that the companies pay for the work that you do on these projects. These projects also all require some level of professional skills, so skills that you're learning in your degree programs or your training programs, even if that's in your first or second year. And to the question earlier, the majority of these projects are remote. So the way it'll work, if you get selected, you connect with a supervisor at the company that has the project need, you get all the details, you work on the assignment, there may be some check-ins along the way, but because it's remote, because you know what you're working on, it really works with a lot of those hectic schedules. I see a question, what if we don't qualify for the micro-internship in accordance to our major? We're going to hop into the platform here in a minute, and one of the things you will notice is we do not actually have a filter for major. And that is because we want you, and the companies want you, to experience or look at different projects based on your interests and the skills you actually have, as opposed to your major. So none of these, every once in a while, there will be a description that says, ideally these majors, it's a very specific set of skills, but most of the time they're looking for someone who has the skills and the interest, and the major doesn't matter. So you're not going to be ruled out because of your major. Now, if you're looking at a micro internship and you're going, oh, I'm really interested in this, but I don't know how to do it. Micro internships can be a great way to figure out what interests you. And then off the Parker Dewey platform, you can find trainings, whether that be taking a course at your institution, doing a LinkedIn Learning course, doing a Coursera course. We're not necessarily affiliated with any of these. We just know they're great resources. And that's something you can do so you're ready for the next time an opportunity like that pops up. Another great question, what if we are unable to complete a micro internship within the deadline? Life happens, right? Sometimes folks get sick, sometimes folks have family emergencies. As long as you communicate with us, we're going to help you handle it. So if something comes up, when you get selected, you're going to get a contact email from the Parker Dewey team. You're also, again, going to be put in contact with the supervisor at the company. So what you're going to want to do is let both those folks know something has come up. I'm not going to be able to complete it by the deadline. And if you're nervous about telling the professional at the company that, reach out to Parker Dewey first. We can help you navigate it professionally. And then whatever the circumstances are, if you're like, I need to hop off of this entirely, I need an extension, here's what's going on, we will help you navigate it. Does your access terminate as soon as you graduate? No, it does not, because micro internships are open to students and recent graduates. Now, there is no official cutoff for recent graduates. As long as you still consider yourself a career launcher, so someone who's trying to figure out where the next phase of your career is going to be, you are welcome and encouraged to use this platform. Now, if you're someone who has already got a full-time role, you're looking to stay in that industry, you've already been there for a couple of years, you're probably not going to see your applications see quite as much attention because typically the companies who are using Parker Dewey are using it as a way to create a pipeline or to recruit for longer term opportunities. So if they see that you're already working full time and that you're not looking to make a career shift, they're more likely to go with someone that maybe could step into a longer term role that they may be looking to create a pipeline for. Other stipulations, you do need to be at least 18. All micro interns are independent contractors of Parker Dewey. So regardless of what company you're working with, you get paid by Parker Dewey, which is why you're all independent contractors of Parker Dewey, and those do need to be 18 or older. Often get a lot of questions from international students, and we have seen international students do micro internships, but every school has their own process. They're going to be able to tell you what the rules are for when you need to register for credit, if you're doing CPT, or if you're far enough in your program to be able to do pre-completion OPT. So if you are an international student and you have questions about how that works, take the information from this webinar and then connect with International Student Services for your institution's unique policies. And again, since micro interns are independent contractors, this is also open to undocumented students as long as they have a valid ITIN number. So hopefully, as we were answering these questions and talking about what micro internships are, those benefits were clear, but just in case they weren't, really want to break it down. One is the accessibility. Regardless of where you are in the country or what area of the country you want to be connecting with, because these are typically remote and because they are asynchronous, there are going to be check-ins along the way, but for the most part, you work on it when it fits your schedule, as long as you meet the deadline. That accessibility piece is huge. This is real experience that you get to add to your resume, depending on your industry, maybe something for your portfolio. And again, you'll add it to those things as an independent contractor of Parker Dewey. The flexibility we see tends to be very helpful for students who have family obligations, work obligations. Again, you're connecting with a real professional. For those of you who said, I don't know what I want to do, looks like just about a third of you, this is a really efficient way to explore without having to jump right into a full semester commitment. And as mentioned, a lot of companies are using this intentionally as a way to build a pipeline towards longer term roles. So while it's not guaranteed, there's a chance that if you do a great job on your micro internship, you could find a traditional internship or maybe even full-time job offer waiting for you on the other side. And I know we already mentioned it, but to highlight it again, every single micro internship experience is paid. I see someone asking, is Parker Dewey a job agency? No, technically we're considered a consulting firm, and all micro interns are independent contractors of Parker Dewey working or consulting with all the various companies that are posting projects. All right, so hopefully at this point you all are thinking, all right, I see the benefits, I'm interested, how does it work, how do I get started? So we're going to show you again step by step how to get started today, how to apply for these projects. Before we jump in, just another reminder about Parker Dewey's role. regardless of what company you do a micro internship with, we are the employer of record. We are the ones who will ultimately be paid by. We're also the ones keeping an eye on the opportunities on the platform. If you have questions or comments or concerns along the way, like the example, what if something comes up and I can't complete this on time? We're the folks that you will reach out to. So basically, we're here to make sure this is a good experience for everyone involved. I see a question about the number of small companies on the platform. Is there a range? Are there going to be some bigger ones? And this is a really important thing to keep in mind about micro internships is these opportunities cycle quickly. So companies with traditional internships are thinking ahead, oh, I'm going to post for the fall a few months in advance, or the spring or the summer. With micro internships, companies are posting whenever they realize they have a demand. So if somebody is in a staff meeting this morning and they realize I have a project that a micro intern could do for me, they're going to post that today. And most projects are only available for about a week before they make a selection, sometimes just a few days. So if you're looking at the opportunities on the platform right now and you're thinking, none of these are quite of interest to me, or none of these are really companies that I'm interested in, one, I would encourage you to focus more on the opportunity than the company. You never know, a company you've never heard of might actually be a great fit. But beyond that, continue to log in regularly because you may see a company or a project from a company you're really interested in pop up the next day. We also have a Creating Your Own Opportunities webinar that we're going to be doing later this month. I'll be sharing that link a little bit later, but you know what? Let me see if I can go ahead and grab it for you right now. If you have your eye on a particular company and you would like to have that company post a micro internship, what we will do during this other webinar is we will coach you on how to find contacts at that company of interest and how to inquire about them posting an opportunity for you. So that link, if you want to join us for that, is now in the chat. When it comes to specific opportunities that require specific knowledge or particular knowledge, are you expected to have it? Or will they be coaching you? This is a great question. And it depends to some extent on the micro internship. So some companies are using these micro internships thinking, I just need to get something done and I want someone who knows how to do it. And if that's a student or a recent graduate, great, let's have them use this to get experience. And for those companies, they kind of already expect you to have those skills. There are other companies, however, who are thinking, okay, I know that we're going to have a consistent flow of opportunities for the next few years. I want to start engaging first and second year students now. I know they're not ready for the traditional internship, but they certainly could work on some of these micro internship projects. And if they're looking to build that pipeline and start building relationships, they're typically willing to do a little bit more coaching. So the typical follow-up question is, well, how do I know the difference? And that is by looking at the descriptions of the micro internships. If there's not something about, being willing to coach or these are the things you'll receive, then typically they're looking for someone who already has those skills. But if the description says, we're going to be teaching you these things, or these are the resources that you'll get, that's how you have that indication to know what type of persona is posting. All right. So scooting right along and jumping into the platform. So when you are setting up your account, there are a few things that you're going to be asked to do off the bat. Now, if you missed it before, here is the link to get started again. To be clear, the only way money ever flows is from Parker Dewey to the micro interns. There is no cost to do that. That would be totally counterintuitive to our mission. So you will jump into the platform. Now, just a little bit of a disclaimer, we are doing some updates to the platform today. And with those updates, sometimes things are moving a little slower or not working. I have screenshots as a backup, but just throwing that out there in case you experience some delays. It is temporary and unfortunately happened to fall at this time. So if you are setting up your profile for the first time, you're going to be asked for the information I'm going to cover in a slightly different order, but I'm still going to cover the basics. And then we're going to backtrack and we're going to talk about those things that aren't required, but are going to really make a difference in you being selected. So if you're setting up for the first time, you're going to put in those basics, your name, your email address, and then we're going to ask you for your current address and your permanent address. And I know you may be thinking, didn't this lady just say that most of these are remote? Why do they need to know where I'm located? And that's because, again, companies are using these as a pipeline towards longer term roles. So even though, the micro internship opportunity is likely going to be remote, they might be intentionally engaging students who have ties to wherever their offices are located. So that's why they want to know where you currently are, and then where do you spend your academic breaks? Your spring breaks, your summer breaks, your winter breaks. So if they want to engage you in an in-person opportunity, if you do a great job on this micro internship, they know if that's a realistic possibility. Not relevant for every micro internship, but helpful for enough of them that that's why we require that. You'll also be asked to put in your work authorization, and then next up, it's going to take you to the education section. This is required because companies have the ability to feature projects to specific schools. And we want to make sure that you see any and all projects you qualify for. So if you have attended and graduated from multiple institutions, maybe you got your associate's degree somewhere, then went on and got your undergraduate degree somewhere else, went on and now you're pursuing your doctorate, add all of those institutions. Now, to be clear, that is only the ones that you have graduated from or are currently enrolled in. If you took a summer course somewhere 6 years ago or even last summer, you didn't complete a certificate, you didn't graduate from that institution, that does not get added to your Parker Dewey profile. Only the ones that you've graduated from or are currently attending. If you do have multiple education institutions to add, you'll see the ability to add them down here. And if you have more than one, you'll see this ability to make the other one primary. Whichever one is closest to the present, or whatever one you're currently enrolled in, or if you just graduated, recently graduated from, that's the one that we encourage you to make primary. After you put in your education information, the next piece you're going to be required is the demographics section. And want to be clear, companies do not see this information. This is only for us, Parker Dewey, on the back end, because some of our goals are to make experience more accessible and more equitable. And your answers let us know how we're doing with that goal. It's, again, not something companies see when they're making selections, but if for some reason you're uncomfortable, there's also the option to prefer not to disclose for all of the demographic questions. I see a question for education. Can you put things like per scholas? So for those of you who maybe are coming from a training program or a boot camp, it's not a traditional higher education program. If that program has established a partnership with Parker Dewey, as Per Scholas has to the person in the chat, you are going to see that program pop up as an option. If you're coming from a training program or a boot camp and you're trying to put it in the education section and it's not popping up, that means that Parker Dewey does not have a partnership with that training program or boot camp. Now, again, if you're attending a higher education institution in the United States that's accredited, whether your school is a partner or not, you're able to use that platform. School is going to be in the system. But if you're from a boot camp or a training program, you want to add it in there and you're not finding it, maybe say to your training program, hey, I really want to engage in micro internships. You should reach out to Parker Dewey and set up a partnership. I see someone saying that they're going through a digital marketing program. They claim that the micro internship could be 40 hours. Is there a way to be placed if you are part of a boot camp? Boot camp students, whether you're Per Scholas or other ones we have program with, can certainly get micro internships. But as we're going to cover, these are all projects that you apply for, and typically they're somewhere between 10 and 40 hours. So today we're going to cover how to make sure those applications look good. If I misunderstood your question, please feel free to clarify further in the chat. All right. And then you are going to be able to see what your profile looks like, but you'll notice from this example versus what we've covered so far, there's some pieces we haven't done yet. So this is where we are going to start to backtrack to those things that aren't required, but can really make a difference. So one of the first things you're going to want to do after you've done the required pieces is add a professional photo. Now, some of your career centers may have told you never add a photo to a resume, and those folks are correct. Listen to their guidance. They are doing you a solid. But this is different from a resume. This is more like a LinkedIn profile is how we encourage you to think about it. And on a LinkedIn profile, you would add a photo just for that extra sense of personalization, of professionalism. So for the photo, head and shoulders, looking pleasant, all that good stuff is going to be perfect just to add, again, that little touch of personalization. Now, companies will only see your profile if you've applied for that company's particular project. So it's not like they're going to be able to hop on and see your photo even if you haven't applied for their opportunities. If for some reason you're still uncomfortable adding a photo, that's okay, but I would recommend adding maybe a square logo from your institution or maybe some sort of logo that indicates what type of opportunities you're interested in. So that way it just shows that level of personalization. Now, the next piece that we haven't talked about but is recommended is this personal statement. So this is not like a personal statement like you're applying for graduate school, multi-page thing. In fact, this has a limit of 255 characters. And if you're thinking, I do not know what to put in this section, or if you need help getting started, we have a resource for you. What I'm looking at right now is our communication tips for micro interns. And this has a section to help you with your personal statement. So to be clear, you do not have to follow this formula exactly, but it's a place to start if you're struggling with figuring out how to begin. So starting with maybe a couple of adjectives that both genuinely describe you and are relevant to the types of micro internships you are interested in. So for example, if you're interested in social media micro internships, those tend to involve a lot of moving parts, remembering dates, those types of things. It makes sense if you are genuinely an organized individual to highlight that you are organized. So as I go through the rest of the formula here, I do have a poll question for you. I would love for you to identify which of those adjectives, regardless of industry, probably not going to be something that you're going to include in your personal statement. The next thing you might want to highlight is maybe one or two skills, experiences, or strengths. So if you're looking for data analytics projects and you recently did a data analysis certificate, you could highlight that here. If you're looking for coding projects and you know a few coding languages, highlight those languages, those types of things. And then the third thing, not required, but it certainly doesn't hurt, is what are your goals on Parker Dewey? So here we have a few examples. This person highlighted they were ambitious and tech savvy, that they've got great writing skills, and they had a pretty open goal. They're just looking to start building real world experience. This person highlighted that they were analytical, organized, and proactive, that they had a certificate in data analytics, and that their goal was looking to build awareness of potential career paths. Then we see someone a little bit farther along in their education. They highlighted that they're a hardworking graduate. The skills were research and experiencing, developing, and implementing marketing strategies. And they knew a little bit more specifically, my goal, I want to work at a mission-driven organization. And this is just a little bit, again, not long, but just a little bit to tell the company more about who you are and what your goals are. And when it comes to that poll, 88% of you got it exactly right. The one of those that we're probably not going to end up putting onto a personal statement is nice, because there's not really any industries that have a requirement for nice, but most people are at least going to put on the facade of nice. If you're not genuinely nice, I'm assuming all of you are genuinely nice, but you're going to put that on for the sake of professionalism. It doesn't really give the company anything new or additional to go off of when they're determining if you would be a good candidate for their role. All right. So we have covered the personal statement. If there are any questions about that, please feel free to put them in the chat. And the next section is this experience section. So I know you may be thinking, well, there's a resume section coming up next. Why do I have to add highlighted experience? And that's where I'm going to come back to this preview section, because this gives you a good idea. It's not exact, but it's very close to what companies see when they look at your profile. And as you can see, this experience section is something they see without having to click in anywhere. Whereas your resume, they have to click into it to open it. So I encourage you all to think of this experience section as kind of a teaser. This is not where you're going to put every experience you've ever had, but this is where you want to pick maybe 1 to 3 experiences that are most relevant to the types of projects you want to be doing on Parker Dewey. So some of you may be saying, I thought we could do this as a first or second year student. I don't have any experience, ma'am. That is why I am here. And if that's what you're thinking, fair, but this is not just professional experience that goes here. This could be classroom experience, so projects you've done as part of your classes. It could be extracurricular experience. It could be something you've done as a passion project. So really think critically, even if it's not directly correlated to what you want to do, there are at least going to be a couple of experiences you can put here to show, if not direct skills, then transferable skills. Skills that maybe weren't exactly what you're wanting to do, but there are some elements of that that can translate easily to what you do want to do. And then as you build experience, doing things like micro internships, moving farther along in your classes and having more relevant class projects, those experiences that you started with are going to fall off, and you're going to replace them with whatever 1 to 3 experiences are more directly relevant. Again, if there's no option for your boot camp program, you can still use the platform as long as you are affiliated with a higher education institution. So I believe you said that your program is through Columbia. So you can find Columbia in here, you can put it in that way. And then what you can do is add the certificate or the boot camp in whatever it is here. But you do, to use the Parker Dewey platform, need to be a student or a recent graduate of either a higher education institution, and again, if the boot camp is through a higher education institution, that counts, or a separate boot camp or training program that is set up partnership. All right, moving on from that experience section, I'm going to talk about the resume section. And you can only upload one resume to Parker Dewey. So if you're interested in different things, connect with your career services center and put together a resume that has a little bit more broad appeal than a resume you would use if you were applying for something specific. Most of the time, career centers are going to tell you, customize your resume for every opportunity you're applying for. And again, they are correct. Listen to your career center folks. They are your friends. Parker Dewey is a little bit of a unique circumstance, again, in that you can only have that one resume uploaded. So that's why this is just one circumstance where it doesn't hurt to have that resume that's got just a little bit more broad appeal if you've got interest in different areas. If you have a website, maybe you're in graphic design or something like that, you can pop that in here. And we also highly encourage you to add your LinkedIn link. If you don't have LinkedIn yet, it's a networking platform, it's free to create an account, and it's just a good idea to have a LinkedIn account for a few reasons. One, I've literally sat with a company when they were making a decision, they were struggling to choose between two candidates. One of them had a LinkedIn link and the other didn't. And you said, I don't know how else to choose. I'm going to pick the one that has a LinkedIn link because that's just one other step towards being a professional. And I appreciate that they did that. So it can help you be selected. The other reason is because once you do get selected for a micro internship, LinkedIn is going to make it easier for you to connect with your supervisor, with other people you may meet, with people you'll meet in future internships, see who they know and who they might be able to connect you with. So it's just a good idea professionally. Now, beyond the resume section, you'll also have the ability, maybe you have just a few examples of work that you've done that's relevant. Maybe you want to do a PR type of micro internship and you've written some really awesome press releases. Maybe you are in graphic design and you want to upload a few examples of your work. If you don't have a portfolio site yet, this is the place to do that. But a word to the wise, whatever the file name is, that is what is going to show up for companies. So I uploaded a file that says annual report compiled and designed by Career Launcher. I would say even shorten it farther than that. So maybe just annual report design or something like that. Or you could put coding project or something along those lines. If you're turning in something you did as an assignment, as an example of your work, make sure it's not titled, course code XYZ final assignment date. That's not going to encourage a company to click. They don't know your course numbers. So just make sure you name things accordingly. So I see we've got another question. Someone's going to be starting their major in January. So January, as long as you are enrolled in the institution. So the question here is if you called that school and said, hey, is so-and-so actively enrolled? If it's close enough to your start date, they would say yes, then yes, you can use Parker Dewey. If they would say, no, they are not enrolled yet, then you're gonna wanna wait until you are actually enrolled in your program. So sometimes folks say, oh, I've been accepted into this institution, can I start? Not when you're just accepted, but if you've enrolled and the institution would confirm as much if you called, then you're welcome to use the platform. All right, so just to recap all these pieces with the profile folks, we have the importance of adding a photo. Make sure you add a personal statement. Make sure that you add a few highlight experiences. Again, these can be class projects. Make sure that you add your LinkedIn link. Make sure that you upload that resume and any relevant examples of your work. And the only piece I forgot here is in this profile section, we also have this affiliation section. If you are a veteran, a student athlete, or an honor student, make sure you add those to this section because companies have the ability to feature projects to those populations as well. If those genuinely qualify for you and you add them to your profile, you may see additional projects be unlocked. All right, so we are going to be switching over to now looking at opportunities and applying for projects. As we get ready to do that, if there are any questions about setting up your profile or what goes in these sections, this is the time to throw them out there. Will we be sending a copy of the recording and presentation? 100%, y'all. The recording and the presentation slides will be going to everyone who is registered. So everyone in the room is going to get them. Is there a way to have your application reviewed before you submit it? Great question. So typically not a specific application. And the reason for that is, again, the short-term nature of the project postings. Most are only posted for a week, if not less. We've seen some go as fast as a few hours. So that's why you don't want to necessarily wait to have someone review your application before you submit. But that stated, you can, and we recommend having someone review your profile. So if that is something of interest, we have monthly office hours. Our next session is going to be Tuesday, September 24th. Today, while I'm always happy to take questions, today is more of a presentation. I'm talking at you and looking at the chat. These office hours are more of an interactive session. So if you want to have your profile reviewed, you want to say, well, this is how I applied in the past. Do you have any feedback on this I could apply to the future? Then this that I'm putting in the chat right now, that is going to be the session you want to go to. I see someone saying that for most of their experiences, they have .io links and they're unsure if they're acceptable for documents or experience. And I will say that is not my area of expertise, but my advice to anyone who is not sure if that is going to be uploaded is when you go to documents, it's going to tell you which files will be accepted. If you're realizing that your file is not one of these file types, then I recommend converting it to one that it may work. So again, it's PDF, JPEG, or PNG. And worst case scenario, you could always just take a screenshot of the work that you've done and they're able to see it that way. Another question, do we get notifications when new opportunities post? And the answer is no, because we would annoy you. They get posted again at all different times a day, all different days of the week. So what you're encouraged to do is just log into the platform regularly. We encourage every few days. And if you do this, you're going to see more opportunities than folks who, for example, are only logging in a few times a month. Now, if your institution is a Parker Dewey partner and a company has featured a project exclusively for your institution, and you have a Parker Dewey account, you'll get an alert about those. But otherwise, we encourage y'all to just log in regularly. So hopping over to this dashboard, looking at these opportunities, as mentioned before, you will notice that we do not have a lot in the way of filters. Again, no filter for major. And that's because we encourage you to scroll through and look at the different opportunities and really be open. Because they move so quickly, you'll also notice, while there are always opportunities, there's not an overwhelming number on any given day. And that's because you'll notice with these start dates, these are going to make selections, they're going to disappear, new ones are going to come on and take their place. So again, why we encourage you to log in regularly. So when you are looking at these opportunities, you can scroll through. If there is one that is exclusively available either to something in your affiliation section or your school, you're going to see a section above this one that says featured micro-internships. If when you're on the platform, you see that section and there are opportunities in that section, pay them a little bit of extra mind. It means that those are available to you, but they're not available to everyone, which means your chances of being selected are even better. And then underneath, you'll find all open micro-internships, or that may be what is at the top if your institution doesn't have any featured. And you're saying, how do we put in the partnership? So if you are from a partnership school, it's something that we already have covered on the back end. A lot of students and recent graduates using Parker Dewey don't even know if their school is a partner, and that is okay. Now, if you would like to see more opportunities on the platform and you want to make sure that your school is a partner and aware of how they can share this with employers, then I would recommend reaching out to Career Services saying, hey, Parker Dewey Micro-Internships are really interesting. Is our institution a partner? Are we promoting this to our employers? And if they come to our website, they'll easily see information about how they can partner with Parker Dewey and hopefully help you see even more opportunities. All right, so as you scroll through, you can kind of take a look at the different projects. If you see one that's of interest, you can hit the drop down. You're going to see more information about that particular project, what they're looking for, and a little bit about the company. You'll be able to see before you even click in if the project is remote or on-site. And again, the majority of these are remote. And I see someone saying, if you could clarify for the person who said I didn't quite answer their question, if you could clarify further in the chat, I'd be happy to give it another go. And then you'll also see when they're hoping to kick off. So typically, they are going to make a selection by that date. You'll also see when they're hoping for this project to be done. This one's a little bit on the larger side from what we typically see, but you'll be able to see the ballpark number of hours, and it's the estimated number of hours because you don't have to track your time with micro internships. You're paid when you complete the project, but we still ask companies to give a ballpark so you have an idea, well, will this fit in my schedule? Do I have time to do this? So with that in mind, for example, with this project, if you can do it and do it well in 55 hours, that's okay. You'll still get paid this amount. If you're doing something like this for the first time and you need a little bit of extra time, typically, again, we're going to see projects closer to 10 to 40. So maybe you need 10 and a half hours on something that's posted for 10. No one's going to get frustrated as long as you complete it by the deadline. So if you decide, okay, well, I have these skills, I'm interested in this project, you can hit apply. And this first question, why do you think we should select you, is always going to be the same. Now, this company's gone a little bit extra and asked a question that is very similar to the first one. So I'm going to look for just a different example here because some companies are using just that first question, whereas other companies are asking a few additional ones. So let's see, for example, what this company has asked. So this is a little bit more on par with what you're most likely to see. Again, that first question, why do you think we should select you? Always the same first question, sometimes the only question. If there are additional questions and what those questions are, it's up to the company. So since this question is going to be asked for every single micro internship you apply to, what we're going to talk about next is how do you answer this question and how do you answer it in a way that is going to help you get selected. So I'm going to go through my backup screenshot tips here. We covered all of this. We've talked about how to see opportunities and apply. And now we're going to talk about how to respond to these questions. And we've got a resource for you. So this is how to ace a short answer application. This resource is now in the chat for you, and we're going to go through these tips step by step. So step number one is look for the question under the question. And I know this kind of sounds like a riddle that a troll would give you living under a bridge, but what we mean by this is that first question again, why should we select you for this opportunity, is going to be the same question regardless of whether you're applying for a social media project or a coding project or any other type of project. But depending on the type of opportunity it is, your answer should be different. So that's what I mean for look for the question under the question, even though the question is technically the same, answer it with the context of the project in mind. And that brings us very streamlined to suggestion number 2, which is to use the project description. And maybe if you Google the company, those types of things, use all that information to your advantage. So in the project description, for example, if they say they're looking for someone experienced in a specific type of software or a specific type of action, and you have that experience, highlight that in your response. That makes it more likely that you're going to be selected. The third tip, and in my opinion, perhaps the most important tip, is to show instead of tell. And I know you may be thinking again, that's cryptic. What does she actually mean by this? So I'm going to skip down here. In number 5, we've got a resource under Keep Your Responses Succinct but Informative. And this is going to take you back to those communication tips about when applying this time. We've moved past the personal statement and we're talking about these application responses. And I'm going to show you the difference between telling versus showing. So we're going to imagine that someone is applying for a social media project. And the question, again, is why should we select you? And this first response is an example of someone telling. So they're saying, you should select me for this project because I have experience making attention-grabbing social media posts. They have told them why. It's not a bad response. Now I'm going to do a little role play with myself here. Imagine that I am someone at the company, I'm talking with a colleague, and I'm trying to figure out who we should select for this project. So colleague A, hey, I need to pick someone for that micro internship. Did you have any thoughts or was there anyone you liked? Colleague B, oh, what about that person who had experience making attention-grabbing social media posts? The one that has some social media experience? Colleague A, colleague B, that is literally all of them. It's a social media micro internship. I have no idea which candidate you're talking about. And C, now alternatively, let's look at someone who had really the same reason, but they showed instead of just telling. So you should select me. Again, same reason. I have experience creating attention-grabbing social media posts. And then they did this thing where they used something called the STAR method. So STAR stands for situation, task, action, and result. And they use those elements to tell a little story. So here they gave the situation. As the social media chair for my sorority, and then they gave the task, or there's still a situation. I was in charge of the social media campaign for our recent Night in Pink fundraiser. Then they gave the action they gave. So the situation and the task. The action is that they planned a series of posts and videos across 3 different social media channels over the course of the month leading up to the event. And then the result, one of them got record engagement and they saw increased attendance from last year's event. So situation, social media chair for my sorority. The task, I had to do the social media for this event. The action, I did these things, and the result. Bonus points if this student also uploaded a PDF to their profile with a link that someone could click on and then maybe see that video. Now, again, this is not an essay. Ultimately, this is only 4 sentences, but they've told a little story. So I'm going to do that scene again. Colleague A, hey, I need to pick someone for that micro internship. Do you have any thoughts? Colleague B, oh, what about the person who did that cool video for their Night in Pink fundraiser? I saw it linked on their profile and I just think that is the neatest thing. Colleague A, I know exactly who you're talking about. I like them too. Let's select them. So that's the difference between showing and telling. Whenever you get an opportunity, and you get that opportunity when asked, why should we select you? Use that STAR method to tell a little 2 to 4 sentence story. All right, so going back to our other tips, mirror the tone. So I am not up on current college student slang anymore, so this is going to be outdated, but I'm going to try my best. If someone posts a project saying we need someone to write a bussin' press release, no cap, yeesh, then if that is authentic to you and it makes sense to you, match that energy. If someone posts a project using very stereotypically professional language, match that energy if that's a project that you're interested in. So that's what we mean when we say mirror the brand tone in your writing. We also want to make sure that we keep it short. We kind of already covered this. 2 to 4 sentences, y'all, is really going to do it. They need to be thoughtful sentences. When possible, they need to tell that little story, but these don't need to be long essays. And when possible, go beyond a yes or a no. So on this one, I'm going to put another poll up, and I want you to imagine that you are the company selecting someone for a micro internship. And the micro interns you're selecting from, maybe none of them have this particular experience. To be fair, not a lot of college students have done mystery shopping. I also want you to imagine for that third option that it didn't actually get cut off and the person was actually allowed to fit their thought. And as you're reflecting on this, I want you all to consider that technically all of these responses are saying the same thing. No, I haven't done this. But which one of them are you still likely to give a shot to? So as y'all are thinking about that, I'm going to come back to this poll here in just a second, but want to take a quick second to show you what the employer perspective looks like after you've applied to these micro internships. So they're going to be able to see all the applicants. They'll be able to click into yours, and then they will see a combination of the information from your profile and whoever you have responded to those application questions. And as you can see from the actions up there, at this point, they do have the ability to send you a message. They might ask a follow-up question about your application, or they might ask to set up a brief Zoom interview to make sure you're a good fit. But because these experiences are short-term and companies are coming to this for on-demand efforts, a lot of the time they're going to make a selection without any further interview process. They're just going to look at what you see here and they're going to make a pick. And that is why it is so important, folks, to make sure that your profile is complete, that you've done all those steps we talked about earlier, and that your application responses are thoughtful and tell a story whenever they can, because those are typically your only 2 opportunities to make a positive impression. So keeping that in mind, I'm going to come back to our poll results now. Looks like 70% of you have done it. And most of you got it exactly the same way that most employers are going to answer it. That third person, again, still said the same thing. Well, I haven't done mystery shopping in particular, but what they did was they highlighted transferable skills. Even though I haven't done that, I do have experience critically thinking about the user experience. And then you can tell that they started in on that short little story using that situation, task, action, result, STAR method. So lovely job, everybody. Most of you are right on target. So I've been kind of navigating around the Parker Dewey platform a little bit as we've been looking at things, but just to reiterate, closing some tabs here because I've got way too many. You can go back and forth between your profile and the opportunities at any time. So if you want to make updates to that profile, you are able to do that whenever you see fit. After you've applied for a micro internship, you're going to see that opportunity here in the applied section. This is how you will know the status of your applications. If it's inactive, even if the start date has passed for the project, then you are still being considered. Every once in a while, companies just get a little bit behind, but if it's inactive, they still haven't made a selection. If it's in past, that's how you will know you were not selected for that particular micro internship. So you're just wondering about what the status is. Once you've been selected, you'll see a micro internship pop over to this section. At that point, you will also get an email notifying you that you have been selected. And this is where I want to make a quick, really passionate plea. Please, 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 whatever your email address in the platform is, and again, you can change that at any time right here. Make sure it's one that you check regularly and make sure that you have whitelisted Parker Dewey emails to that email address. Because there are a few things more heartbreaking for us on the Parker Dewey team than seeing someone that's put together a great profile, quality application, they get selected, and then they didn't see the selection email and they didn't respond and the company moved on to the next candidate. These, again, move quickly. So if you apply for a micro internship, companies are typically expecting you to respond to notification that you've been selected within 24 hours. Now, pretty intuitive, folks. Once you've completed a micro internship, it's going to pop over here to the completed section. This is also where you'll be able to see any feedback that companies may have left for you. And if a company does have a question about your application or wants to just have a little bit of an exchange about the project before making a selection, you will see it pop up here, and you'll also get an email notification that you have a message. Now, a quick reminder, again, that regardless of what companies you're applying with through the platform, we, Parker Dewey, are the only folks that are ever going to pay you for a micro internship. So we're keeping an eye on the opportunities, making sure that folks have good intentions. But if somebody unsavory ever slips through and they say, oh, I'd love to pick you, I just need your social security number, then you say, no, 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 no. Only Parker Dewey needs that. You don't need that. And you contact us. The email address is right there, support@parkerdewey.com. Let us know, and we will address the situation. Again, not something likely to happen, but we just want to make sure you have the reminders and resources to protect yourselves as well. So you may be thinking, all right, I know how to set up my profile. I know how to respond to the questions. What happens if I get selected? Maybe this is your first professional experience. When you get selected, you're going to get an email that has the contact information for the point of contact at the company. You're going to reach out to that person. You're going to set up a meeting to make sure that you understand the details of the project and have everything you need to get going. It's going to include the link to a checklist to help you and guide you, make sure that you've got everything you need. I'm going to show you that checklist here in a second. It's also going to include accounting forms so we can pay you after you're done with the project, terms of use, and some best practices. Now, when you are meeting with the company, keep in mind that when you do micro internships, you are agreeing by using the platform to something called a non-disclosure agreement. Now, some of you may have heard of things called non-compete agreements. It's not a non-compete agreement. That wouldn't make any sense. These are short-term projects. You can continue to do internships and micro internships and other opportunities with any other companies you wish. But a non-disclosure agreement just means if a company is telling you something confidential, that you're not going to go blabbing that all over the place. Now, most of the time, micro internships aren't really dealing with anything that's that confidential. So what we encourage you to do is at that first meeting, ask your supervisor, is anything that you're sharing with me or anything I'm working on confidential? Most of the time, they're going to say no. And you can even ask the follow-up question, is it okay if I talk with my faculty or talk with my mentor about this? And most of the time, they're going to say, yeah, that'd be great. Get some additional perspective. So that's where, again, in addition to your micro internship supervisor, you can have resources in your faculty, in mentors. Maybe you have an alumni person in your area of interest that you're very close with. And you could say, I'm working on this real project. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I'm doing, and get their perspective. Again, as long as you've gotten the company's permission first. Now, if you run into some difficulty, maybe you're like, I thought I knew how to do this project. I just had the kickoff meeting and it's actually not what I thought it was. Or circumstances have just changed. I can't do this anymore. Reach out to the Parker Dewey team. Whatever the issue, we can help you navigate it professionally. And there are often questions about pay. Parker Dewey processes pay once a month. So whenever you complete the micro internship, that pay will get processed at the end of that month. And depending on how quick your bank account is, and assuming you filled out those forms, you'll see it in your bank account typically on the first or second day of the next month. So for example, if you completed your micro internship today, September 19th, your supervisor marks it complete, that pay would be processed at the end of September, and you'd see it in your bank account in the beginning of October. But if you have any questions about pay, we do have frequently asked questions about the pay process, and you can always reach out to Parker Dewey. Again, don't ask the supervisor at the company. They're not going to know. They're not the ones who are paying you. Ask Parker Dewey. So as promised, here's just a quick preview of that success checklist and examples to help you feel more confident. When you get selected, you're going to get this checklist and everything from a template to reach out to your supervisor so you can feel confident that you are doing so professionally and in a way that is going to make you look good is here. We've got tips for getting yourself set up for that first meeting. We even have follow-up templates to make sure that you got all the information you need from that meeting. So if you forgot to ask something, it's okay. Here's another opportunity to ask for clarification. We also have resources, again, those pay forms, tips for setting yourself up for success, and it's going to vary from micro internship to micro internship. Some of them are pretty straightforward. You might decide you're only going to do a couple of email updates here and there. If that's the case, we have a template for you, again, to make sure you're doing this professionally. If you're going to have a couple of meetings, we also have an agenda template. So please make use of these resources to make sure you're making a great impression. Even after the micro internship, we want you to continue to make a great impression and have a great experience. So once completed, you're also going to get a post micro internship checklist. We'd love for you to let us know your thoughts on the experience. We encourage you to reflect, and we give you resources for adding this to your resume and to LinkedIn. A reminder again, you'll add this as an independent consultant of Parker Dewey. So we encourage you to ask the company, hey, is it okay if I include you in the description? Again, most of the time they're going to say yes, but maybe they have you working on something that is client facing for them and they may not want that publicly out there. In that case, this also gives you guidance on how you can describe the client as opposed to naming them. So if they're a big company, you might say a Fortune 500, whatever type of manufacturing firm. That's an example. If they're a local shop that doesn't have a lot of name recognition anyway, you might still want to describe them as opposed to name them so people have a better understanding of what type of experience you did. We also have resources to help you share about your experience on LinkedIn, to ask for a recommendation, and your micro-internship supervisor is now a part of your professional network. So we give you tips to help keep that relationship strong. And we've got the question about the number of opportunities on the platform. And this is where the logging in regularly comes back into play. So if you're looking on the platform right now, you'll note that a lot of these opportunities, like this one, for example, probably going to make a selection today. This one is going to make a selection within the next week. So just a reminder that they move quickly. And so these are going to disappear and new ones are going to come on and take their place. And so due to the short-term nature of micro internships, that means on any given day, it's not going to be a huge number of projects. Typically, we do have some companies that will boast in bulk. Those will be a little bit of unusual days. But for the most part, the key is to log in regularly because, again, at any one moment, not a ton, but if you keep logging in regularly, you're going to see a lot cycle through. And if you are interested, again, in maybe trying to create an opportunity that is of interest to you, that maybe you're not seeing a lot of that type, that's where this creating your own opportunities webinar comes in. We're going to be doing this one a little bit later this month. So coming full circle to those folks we talked about at the beginning, I won't read you all of their quotes, but these are the same students who are struggling with the same things that were in those polls at the beginning. Students saying, I can't afford an unpaid opportunity. I don't know what I want to do. I'm having trouble figuring out a first step. I'm not getting any interest in my traditional internship applications. I want to try something different, but I don't have time to explore with where I am in my degree program, and I don't have time to take on an extra year. If those things resonate with you, and I know they did because we saw the poll at the beginning, you can see how micro internships have helped these other students with those same struggles. And if you get inspired by hearing more from other students, you want to see how students from different majors, schools, walks of life have made great experiences out of these micro internships, I encourage you to check out these success stories. Again, we've got a wide range of backgrounds, majors, goals, and you can see how these students have used it to launch their careers, whether that was experience that they then leveraged at a different company or something that led to a traditional internship and ultimately a full-time role. So if you haven't already, go to that link that we put in at the beginning, create that account, get started. Make sure your profile is complete. To the questions we've seen in the chat about the number of opportunities, log in regularly. The more often you log in, the more opportunities you're going to see. Don't wait if you see something that interests you. As a reminder, these are typically only up for about a week or less before they make a selection. We've seen some go as quickly as in a few hours. So if you see something you're excited about, don't wait to apply. And we've got that link in the chat again. If you've got a company of interest or maybe a niche industry that you're really interested in, take the reins, take control, reach out to them about the possibility of them posting one of these micro internships. Recently saw an article that said something like 87% of traditional internships are filled informally with routes such as students reaching out. So if that's the case for traditional internships, the logic stands. The same is true for micro internships as well. And if you need more resources, we also encourage you to check out our Career Launcher LinkedIn page. It's going to give you reminders about events like the Creating Your Own Opportunities events that's coming up. You'll be able to read perspectives from different micro interns, get reminders, get tips. So if you are not already following that page, we recommend doing so. And the link to that is in the chat as well. And with that, folks, we have come to the end of our presentation. If there are any questions, still going to hang around for a while, look for those in the chat. And if you have a question that you want to ask audibly, if it's just easier that way, please feel free to raise your hand. I'll be happy to unmute you so you can ask that out loud. But while we wait for those questions, just want to say, thanks so much for spending some time with me today. We hope that this was helpful, and I'm looking forward to hopefully writing some success stories about some of you very soon.